Today we're speaking with Laura Ziskin, co-founder of Stand Up to Cancer, an initiative intended to enable cutting-edge research targeting all types of cancer, for which the AACR is the sole scientific partner. She is also the movie producer behind such films as Pretty Woman and the Spider-Man series, among many others. Ms. Ziskin is also a cancer survivor. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
What was your inspiration to become involved in and co-found an organization like Stand Up to Cancer?
Well, certainly my own cancer diagnosis 6 years ago. I had late-stage breast cancer, and I had a lot of treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, stem cell transplant, surgery, you name it, I had it. I still have cancer. I'm here as a kind of a lesson of what Stand Up to Cancer means, which is I think about living with, not dying from cancer. I think that's where we're headed. But because I'm not a doctor or scientist, but I'm someone who is a problem solver, you know, I looked around and I thought, why is my prognosis no better really today than if I'd had the same diagnosis 40 years ago? That seemed like a huge failure to me. And I also realized that people touched by cancer, that's really everybody in this country. If you think 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed in their lifetime, and that 1,500 Americans die every single day from this disease, this is an epidemic, and we are a huge constituency. Why have we not come together? And I always jokingly say, if we would be called ACT UP, but it was taken, but we really took a page from AIDS activists who were able to come together around their disease and move the needle in how their disease was treated. So I wanted to use the bully pulpit of the media, which is where I live and work. And fortunately, Sherry Lansing, Lisa Paulson from the Entertainment Industry Foundation, Rusty Robertson, Ellen Ziffer, Sue Schwartz, Kathleen Lobb, and Katie Couric, we all had the same idea. We didn't know quite how we would do it. I initially wanted to make a documentary. They came to me and said, we want to do a Roadblock TV show. And because I had produced the Academy Awards a couple times, the networks were comfortable with me producing. So I said, okay, we'll take that on. But the basis of it, the thesis was, if we did a telethon and we raised money, I mean, I'm a propagandist. So first I want to raise awareness, and I want to get people engaged, and I want to make people say, forgive me, but how I feel, I'm mad as hell. I want better treatments. You know, I want answers to my disease, and I believe the answers are out there, but there isn't the will, as there was with AIDS, to make those answers, you know, get to the patients quickly. So that is a big part of Stand Up to Cancer's mission. The other part is, could we raise money? If we were going to raise money, how do we not? Now I'm going to be piss in the ocean, you know what I mean? Not just be a drop in the bucket. How could we actually do something different? So we joined with the AACR. We had some very intense meetings about what we thought was missing, and we decided to focus on a very narrow piece of the pie, which is translational research. So we did a couple things. We said translational research, meaning it has to be bench to bedside. And someone said bench to bedside to curbside. It has to get to the people, and there has to be that connection. And why do the scientists not work together? So we're trying to do no less than change the culture of how scientific research, particularly in cancer, is done. So not people isolated in silos competing for limited resources, but bringing teams of people together across institutions and across disciplines to work on very specific, targeted problems in cancer for which there may be a solution within 3 years. So it's about collaboration and acceleration. Those are our big words.
The pace of discovery is speeding up, which leads to new opportunities in translational medicine and collaborative research, as you say. And this is really highlighted in the pioneering Stand Up to Cancer funding model. Could you talk about how this could be the future of cancer research funding?
Yes, and in fact, we think our model, and you know, it's an experiment. So, you know, again, I'm not a scientist, but I'm experimenting. We looked at what was missing. We don't think it's the only kind of research that should be done, but not just in cancer, in many diseases. Translational research, which I think the public is really just coming to understand, is to take what we already know from the basic scientists. And I always kind of do this continuum, like they're the guys in their lab and they're working on, they're not seeing patients, they're seeing cells or cell lines or, DNA, whatever. Then there's me, the patient, and the 12 million other cancer survivors and the 1.5 million people who will be diagnosed this year in this country. And we're over here saying, where are you? What do you have for me? And here's the clinician, and they're over here with the patient. We want to bring the scientist and the clinician closer together so that we take what we already know and we say to these translational scientists, take what we know and start applying it quickly. Apply it, see what happens, learn from that, refine it, make it better, go back. So that's the translational aspect. The collaborative idea in the funding model is really, we just demanded, we said, we're not going to give money unless people come together and work together. And the scientists were giddy. They loved it. They'd never been, just in the process of applying, and we made the application process simple. We had a very blue ribbon scientific advisory committee that the AACR helped us put together. We said, unlike other grant-making processes, we said to the people making the decisions, advising us about where to grant the money, that they should participate. They're brainiacs. When the teams came in with ideas, we said to the scientific advisory committee, give them the value of your expertise. Tell them how they can make it better. Work with them. So it's all an iterative, collaborative, alive, moving process that doesn't have to wait for one guy at Harvard to publish a paper, that could have helped somebody at UCLA, but 5 years go by before that information really seeps into that other lab. So that's really what the future has to be, and we're not going to do it by ourselves, and the government's not going to do it by themselves. Everybody has to come together around this, and we have even been talking about really offering our funding model to any institution or any funders who want to look at what we're doing. We'll say, this, take it, modify it, use it.
What is your message when it comes to federal funding?
Well, President Obama was on our first show, and he said he would double the NCI budget within his term, which was something we wanted to hear. I don't think it's as much about how much we spend as how we spend it. So a lot of money is spent on cancer research, not enough, I don't think. But I think there's no plan. I don't think there's a recognition of what a crisis this is. So I kind of think, if I were to say one thing to the government, I would say, what if you opened the Washington Post or the New York Times today and it said 1,500 Americans died today. 1,500 Americans are going to die tomorrow. And what if every day you opened the newspaper as a politician and you were confronted with something that was killing 1,500 Americans a day? It's 9/11 every other day. Wouldn't you say, this is a crisis? We need to do something, and not with drips and drabs through legislation, but I think something extra governmental, like a stimulus. In other words, we're in a crisis. We need action, not little bits of legislation of, that's not going to do it. We need a focused program, and we think we have a model, not the only model, but we think we're doing, if we succeed at all, then, we become a template that can then not be the answer, but be something that can be built upon. But from the federal government standpoint, it's about the will. When we have the will, when the government says, we got to make an atom bomb, because if we don't, the Germans are going to make one and we're all going to die, they make it happen. When President Kennedy said, we got to go to the moon, they didn't know how to get to the moon. If someone said, and someone could say, cancer is a harder problem than going to the moon. Okay, so what? It's a problem. We have to be problem solvers. That's what this country, what we do in this country. We don't make anything anymore, but we have innovation and being a leader in this devastating disease that actually, and I'm talking about our federal government, but this is a worldwide problem. So cancer in this coming year will be the leading cause of death in the world and is a huge problem in the developing world. So I think to me, it's not about, I'm not somebody who knows how much money should be spent or how it should be done. I know that as a nation, we have to focus on this problem and demand that something be done.
The DREAM teams are dedicated to providing translatable results within an accelerated time frame of 3 years. Could you talk a little bit about the significance of these types of grants and what it means for patients who rely on the research?
Yes. What part of the funding model that we've talked about, and you can go on standuptocancer.org and read our funding model, so it's there for anyone to see. The beauty of it and the uniqueness of it was to put these teams together to look at things that actually had a chance of getting to the clinic within 3 years. So I describe myself, as everybody with cancer would, as an impatient patient. You know, I know that this disease is going to kill me if something better doesn't come along. And I believe they've got I don't think they're hiding anything from me, but I think there's avenues of exploration that are close. So we wanted to provide enough money to actually move the needle in a short amount of time. That doesn't mean that long research that's going to take long term shouldn't be done. We totally support that. It's just not the thing that we're doing.
So what's next for Stand Up to Cancer?
Well, we're going to do another show. That's not public knowledge yet or committed, but we're hoping to do another show this year, and we hope to have an announcement in the near future. We're going to continue to try to create a movement, amongst the public. And we're going to keep funding research. We, of course, monitor with the AACR the research that's being done. So unlike most granting mechanisms, we don't give the scientists the money and say, see you, when you have a result, call us. They have milestones that they have to meet in order to continue to be funded. So, we're going to keep tracking that, and we're just going to hope that we can make, as we like to say, that we can make cancer history.
One last question for you. Stand Up to Cancer is based on the idea that everybody can make a difference. What is your message to the public who is watching this and wondering how they can help?
I think there are many ways, and as someone who's had cancer and had the ups and downs of that, I think when you get a life-threatening disease, the last thing you want to do is join a movement. You'd like to pull the covers over your head and have someone tell you the thing no one can tell you, that you're going to be okay. But I think then when you realize that there are 12 million cancer survivors, and we want to make everyone diagnosed with cancer a survivor, that we have to speak up, and that we are a huge, huge constituency. So I say, do whatever you can. We don't feel Stand Up to Cancer is the only answer. So, give money to people who you think are doing research that will produce results. Demand to know where your money goes, how it's spent, and what it does. And that's where we feel at Stand Up to Cancer, we are answerable to the public who funds us. So we, on the website, on the show, and here at the AACR meeting, we will put together, as things come online, as there's progress, as there's failure, we're going to tell you what's happening. But I say, make this, I heard Lisa use this term, a first-tier issue in this country, because it is, everyone's impacted. And when we come together, we can make a difference. We can make people pay attention, and when they pay attention, we will find the answers. We need the will, and that's what the public can provide.
Ms. Ziskin, thank you so much.
Thank you. Great.